Good morning. My name is Matthias Kraus, and I'm working at the Fraunhofer Institute for Intelligent Analysis and Information Systems, and I'm the coordinator of the ARISE project. I would like to welcome you to the third ARISE conference on information and communication technology in natural science education in Šiauliai. Unfortunately, as you see, I cannot be there today, so I have to talk to you in this video recording, which is a bit unfortunate for me. I've had a look in the conference program, and this looks very interesting, and I would like to be there and discuss with you and share some ideas, but as said, it's not possible, and so I will use this chance to talk to you about two observations I made during the last summer school of the ARISE project. The observations are very, very subjective to me, and maybe they're naive, maybe they're interesting for you, and I thought they're worth sharing. You probably have heard about the ARISE summer school that we had a couple of weeks ago. If not, there will be probably more in this conference about this later on this morning and in the second section this afternoon. I've seen the first observation I had was we've set up the Spinnstubes so we could have remote collaborations. They were networked together and people could sit in there, have their models and talk to each other. The interesting part that happened was that people actually started discussing. This might not be a surprise, and you might wonder why this was so interesting for me. The interesting part was that there were several situations when people actually forgot about all the technology that was around them, and they didn't see that they were sitting inside a huge pile of metal and had all this technology around them. The technology simply disappeared. And what also disappeared, if it ever was there, was their idea of being in a pedagogical setting. So they were inside their thoughts, they were sharing thoughts, they were talking to each other, they were showing things to each other, they were working together. And in this moment, I stumbled across a question, and there was a topic that we have in the project that was about technological versus pedagogical aspects, and if there's a dominance between these two parts of typical e-learning projects. And I thought, and I asked myself, is this discussion really important? Why are we discussing about this? Because in the end, if everything runs fine, both disappears. Technology disappears to the learner, and also the pedagogical aspects disappear to the learner. So this brought me to another idea, and that was that we usually in these technology-enhanced learning discussions, we're talking too much about ourselves. We're talking about teaching how to teach, but shouldn't we instead talk about learning how to learn? Shouldn't we focus more on the learner? I mean, research, both technical and pedagogical research on this is important, but we're not the important ones in this field. We're not the primary target group. I thought back about what were the promises of technology-enhanced learning and about e-learning and CSCL. And I came across three promises, basically promises that were made more than a decade ago. The first was, there was an argument saying we are making learning more efficient. In other words, we make it cheaper. And the second promise was we can enable learning in settings that are difficult to realize or difficult to implement in traditional learning settings. For example, telelearning, remote learning, all these sorts of distributed collaboration. And we did that. And we made the first promise, we also, I guess we had some success in this, but it wasn't the first and the primary goal to make a better learning experience. So again, we're not the important ones. We're just there to provide an environment where people can have a good learning experience. That's my personal opinion on this, and I would like to discuss with you about this, but unfortunately I cannot hear what you're saying, so I will go on. The second experience I had, or observation I had during the summer school, was the surprise that although there were Lithuanian and German kids, and they both had to talk in English, this was surprisingly good. Their English skills were surprisingly good for me. And I went to the preparation room and I saw that there were kids sitting with dictionaries, and they were talking about English. And they were trying to find the words and trying to find out if this sort of grammar is okay, what you can say, if this can be understood, things like these. So they learned themselves without someone forcing them to learn. And I tried to, at this point, I tried to remember my school days, and I tried to remember if I ever did something like this, if there was no one telling me that I have to do this. And I couldn't remember that many situations about this. So this was a surprise to me. Basically, this was about telling each other local culture, but suddenly people just learned English by themselves because they had a motivation and because they were allowed to, and nothing else. And there was no technology involved, and there was no pedagogical. Yeah, maybe there was a pedagogical concept involved, but that was simply to allow them to do this. So this brought me to the question: why do we always try to shape a learning experience if it also works just by not forbidding what they want to do? They're good on their own. And this again brought me to another question: why are we there at all? In a business world, you would have to explain a benefit to the customer in order to argue that they're there and that you have a benefit at all. This is probably true for most areas, and in the learning field, the customer is the learner. And if you really want to improve learning experiences, the customer is the learner and no one else. So that's the only customer we have. So my central question is: what benefit do we offer to learners? Again, this is general for pedagogical research, but it becomes quite funny. This question becomes quite funny when it comes to technology-enhanced learning, because we're always arguing, okay, we bring new technology into the field, and we bring new technology that will enable new experiences for the learners. Is this really true? I sometimes have the impression that we're not at the cutting edge technology. We're rather behind. We're behind the learners. Sometimes the technology-enhanced learning discussions are not about bringing technology into the field, but rather about older people, which are we, trying to understand technologies that are, apparent and very natural to kids already. They're far ahead of us. And this is sometimes, sadly, this is true for e-learning conferences, but I'm very confident that this conference is not like this. That you're really trying to make new experiences and trying to build up new learning experiences. That's basically what I would liked to have discussed with you if I were there. Unfortunately, I'm not, and that's why I stop here. Maybe you take something out of this, maybe not. Let me finish with probably the only important thing I have to say, or I want to say, and that's big thanks to Vincentas Lamanauskas and Rytis Vilkonis and their team for organizing this conference. I think they have had a lot of work, and I'm sure they did a great work with this, and I really hope that this pays off in the next 2 days. One last thing I want to say is the Arise project will end the end of this year. So this will probably be the last conference under the label of Arise. I really hope, and I would really like to see this sort of event continue in some way. I don't know how this will work, but I would really like that this is not the end of these sorts of conferences. So at the very end, I'm at the very end. You've gone through it. I wish you 2 very pleasant days, and I wish that you take home some ideas for the next weeks, for the next months, or maybe for the next years. So have a great conference. Cheers. Goodbye.